I made a video about this same topic yesterday or day before yesterday, and I didn't like how it came out. So I went ahead, I'll go ahead and do this one as well. So as you guys know, we talk about a lot of mysteries on the channel. We got into the mystery of Gog and Magog and the RH negative factor. We'll be exploring a lot more topics like that in the future. So what I really wanted to talk about, and I guess I'll try to wait until some people come through, because there's not anybody in here now. And if nobody tunes in, then we'll just go ahead and run down the stuff that we want to talk about. I'm doing a quick video shoot. I'll be back. So I just wanted to run down this for this channel. All right, I bought my kids some bikes today. So all the bikes are out here. Hope everybody's doing well. We are doing great here in Africa. I'll have to say also, it is very sunny today. It is absolutely warm, warmer than it's been this entire season. So it looks like we're changing seasons now. We're getting into the dry season again. It's gonna get ready to be hot out here. So we'll just have to move accordingly. It was a hot one today, and so we've been out in the street riding bikes. But yeah, everything is cool. You done? You finished? Make sure your bathroom is clean. Make sure your room is clean. Make sure all those things are clean. Yes, sir. All right. So I just wanted to fill you guys in on a couple of goals for this channel, so that you guys can know what is coming up, what to expect from us here at this channel. I do intend on doing more lives, and I suppose that the lives that I'll be doing will be topic-based so that people can the live and ask questions and interact with the topics. I would like for, if you watch any of the videos or if you're going through the channels and you have a particular topic that you want to be fleshed out a little bit further, to go ahead and put a comment in the comment box, so that I can know which things people are interested in and know which things to talk about. Otherwise, if I don't get anything like that, then I'll go ahead and, just talk about something that I would have talked about anyway. And if people are interested in that concept, those ideas, then they'll tune in, and then we'll just flesh out the concept that way. So you can expect more lives on the channel. Another thing that I want to do is get back started to making the video series or series. And so if you've been familiar with this channel, if you've watched it for the past few years, the channel has been up and producing videos about the Father and about the things, the mysteries of this world that are hidden in the scripture that we can, prove in reality. That's what the video series has been about. And they're all working towards a goal, right? And so I have several series, and the real first series that I started must have been Zorro Science. And so, of course, on this channel, we get into the science of the Bible. We discuss the shape of the earth. We discuss the nature of spirits. We discuss the nature of consciousness and mankind. We discussed what dreams are. If you followed the Theory of Everything series, we went into what dreams are and how dreams work and how they kind of are a proof of an alternate reality in your waking realm. So all of these are scientific concepts that you wouldn't consider scientific. Scientists would say this is metaphysics, things that we are not sure of, and then also not sure to exist. So you can for sure put a green check mark on not sure of, because in the flesh, there's only so many things you can know of about the spirit. But as far as proven to exist, we understand that the spirit exists. We understand just based off of consciousness that the spirit exists. You wouldn't be conscious right now if there wasn't some sort of energy within you that was interpreting the things that you see around you. You are not only your body, right? So this is the science that we get into. And with the video series, Bizarro Science, I specifically hone in on the nature of the earth, right? The shape of the earth and the implications of a flat earth versus a round earth. Why do people believe that the earth is round? What propaganda has been centered into people's minds to believe the earth is round? And then when we find out that it's not, what does that mean biblically? What does that mean about the structure of the earth, about the structure of heaven, about the structure of hell? And, what can we glean and understand from the scriptures with this new information, right? So that's what Bizarro Science is about. You guys excuse me. We've been in the dirt and stuff today. I haven't taken my shower yet. And we'll get all that done after I get off with you guys. But that's what the Bizarro Science series is about. Just really delving into and fleshing out the concept of the scientific spiritual person, the one that requires evidence, and the evidence is overwhelming. And we have that in the text, we have that in reality, we have it in prophecy, we have it in history, literally everywhere. Present day, things that you can see around you today to let you know these things are so. So the Bizarro Science series will continue, but it'll kind of merge into another series that I put out called The Secret Religion, because that, of course, goes hand in hand, right? You have Bizarro Science, and then you have science itself, or what is called science, actually existing in a spiritual form and not in a philosophic one or a a scientific one, if you wanna call it science. The science that we know of today is more spiritual and more conceptual than the spiritual world that we know today. We have a very, very fluid and concrete understanding of the spiritual reality, but the scientific fiction is unproven, unrepeatable, and not known to exist if we look out in nature. And of course, we see things like telephone poles and cell phone towers and you know 50-story buildings and think to ourselves, okay, well, we're at the height of our technological capability. So anything that science puts out or that scientists put out must be things that are true and things that exist in nature, and we should just trust them on the theories that they put out because they've put out things that we know to be true, like the way that a car functions, the way that a TV functions, the way a computer or a cell phone functions. These things work with the technology that they have. And since these things work, we are also assuming that the theoretical models that they have in place also are based on real things. And it just turns out not to be the case. It turns out that those theoretical models are, for lack of a better term, a scientific religion. We know that the Big Bang Theory is a mythological event that they created in order to have a genesis or a creation epic in the religion. We know that the aliens located within this scientific approach, because if you take the scientific approach that there are multiple worlds, that there's a universe with 100 billion light years of empty space littered with planets, and those planets may be littered with life. If you take the multi-world approach, then the God of your religion, the prevailing force has to be these aliens, right? And so there's a God in the scientific model, or gods, you should say, and those are the aliens, right? And so we point this out in this religion series, that the people that are involved in this scientific, fictional theoretical, space that, yeah, that they've created for us. Um, some of them that this is a falsehood, and know some of them that it's a religion, and promote that religion as a religion, but subconsciously as a religion. And the way that we prove that is we go into movies and analyze the subtext of the films, and then see what the subtext is saying to us. Like, for instance, I'm sorry, you guys, I'm scratching my back. For instance, we go into the movie Contact. If you guys are familiar with this film, it's got Jodie Foster in it, and it's got Matthew McConaughey in it, right? And Jodie Foster plays this scientist whose father dies very early on in the film, and she is seeking for, some sort of acceptance from the universe for her existence, right? Outside, outside of Elohim, she's seeking acceptance from the universe for her existence. She's seeking the purpose of life, but she's looking out into the universe to find it. So she's looking for life on other planets, and she's spending her time wasting her life actually searching for life on other planets. And then she runs into this half a preacher, half a philosopher, half a philanderer. And he is, claiming to have the meaning of life through Christianity. And their, interplay is really the basis of this story, and really highlights that, according to the protagonist of the story, which is the scientific woman who is seeking to find the meaning of life, that she is seeking through science in a religious way, right? In a way that is ultimately more religious than religious people, right? You believe more in this science with these fabricated concepts and ideas than than people believe in the Bible or Christianity as a whole. That the whole concept of the modern scientific notion, or the standard theory, is just a whole religion, right? That's what the Secret Religion series goes into, is the concept of science, modern science, as religion, and using the film Contact and the subtext behind Contact, to prove point. And then it goes deeper into that concept, developing, the entities within the concept being aliens, right? And, pointing them out for what they actually are, is those ancient spirits that are called demons, that have existed on earth for as long as we have existed on earth. And they've approached us in different manners, in different eras. And here in the last era, they approach us as a fantastically new creature from some distant, far off galaxy, a fabricated universe, and coming to basically tell us that the new religion of the earth is the worship of them and the acceptance of their ideas and technology. This is what we know of today as a modern demonic invasion. And so this is what the Secret Religion series has fleshed out. And so I said all that to say that the series on science, the Bizarro Science, that has gone definitely down the trail of flat Earth, fleshing out the concepts behind flat Earth, seeing what in the Bible it says about these concepts and proving them to be so. And then also the Secret Religion, which is the antithesis of the concept of flat Earth, where you're round Earth and the billions of light years of space, showing that to be a religion. Those two video series will come together and merge into a single topic, because those two things are really opposite sides of the same story, and they're leading in the same direction. So shalom, shalom, Mishpachah, that just came on here. We're just really going over a synopsis of what to expect here in the near future from this channel. And we've gone down that we'll start doing lives more, and take requests on what people want to hear spoken about, in reality that we can see out in the media, in, modern day. And then, merging them with our biblical understanding to get a real sense of what's going on in the world. This is what the lives are going to be based on: the mysteries, the enigmas of the Bible, and in our space that we see before us, just fleshed out. Some of the things that people are confused about, we'll do lives on. And again, we'll take Shalom, Shalom. I'm learning to trade. Good to see you, my brother. But we will take requests on what you guys want to hear as far as the lives are concerned. But going forward from that, we'll also have the continuation of the video series. If you guys haven't checked out any of these videos, go check them out. They're on my channel. The Bizarro Science series, it starts off with the Big Bang myth, and it just, it's a very old video, so please forgive me if it's a little bit clunky. It's from 2014. So after that is my most popular video, which 30,000 views, the first flat earth video. And if you guys check that out, it's almost an hour. So it's very, thoroughly worked, very biblically researched, and also researched in modern era and ancient era, all of these things. Try to cover all my bases. And then I have a secondary flat earth video. But like I said, I also have a secret religion series. And if you guys haven't checked that series out, please also check that one out. And we just went over what it discusses: secret religion being the standard model, scientific method, theoretical scientific conception of the universe being in itself a religion, and having gods in that religion being the aliens, and having a creation story being the Big Bang, and all of these different aspects of a religion modern science has. So just proving it to be in itself, a pagan religion. Modern science being a pagan religion. So that's the secret religion series. And then, like we were saying, those two series will merge together into a single video series. I'll be in there in a moment. Those two series will merge together into a single series because they are like opposite sides of a coin, with the false reality, the billions of light years of space and time, with the real reality, the earth being flat, and the only universe existing of three dimensions: heaven, earth, and hell, right? With spiritual realities living in all three, and physical realities only living in one. Do you see what I'm saying? And so those two video series will merge together into a comprehensive conclusion to show people the real reality versus the fake reality in a concise, maybe long, but in a single place, so people can get a real understanding of the world that they live in today. So those two video series have additional videos coming out, but they will merge conceptually together. Of course, we have the American series. If you haven't checked that series out, go check that one out too. It just discusses the history of Jeremiah. I'll be in there in a minute. We're not going to right now. We just came in. Y'all just had showers. I'll be in a minute. Go ahead and get your stuff together, and I'll get started with homeschool. And so we do homeschool late sometimes, you guys. But the American Jew series goes over the concept, which we know to be true, of the African American people being the real and true Israelites of the Bible. We go over scripture, we go over condition in America today. We prove that the public housing system in America today are concentration camps where our people are deceived into putting themselves into. And then, just like the concentration camps in Nazi Germany and Poland and Austria in the 30s and 40s, we have the same style of poisoning and gassing and criminal elements that are being introduced into the society going on in the concentration camps of America, proving that we are the actual people who the concentration camps in Germany were designed to hold. They were practicing on their own people in order to to purposefully implement a better and more hidden system on us in America, which they succeeded, and it's just still happening. So American Jew 1 goes into that. American Jew 2 goes into the propaganda they use, that they portray on the entire world to make this happen, to render the African American male, the Hebrew Israelite, as a subhuman person by creating these tropes and putting them through society, like King Kong, like Planet of the Apes, which we know both are tropes to to describe the Hebrew male, and the same scientific matrix, false matrix system that they have hoisted upon us. So exactly like there is evolution in the cosmos from the Big Bang, the universe evolved on Earth from this protoplasmic, primordial sludge. Humans evolved, and the apex human is the Caucasian male, right? With the lesser beings being, black and everything else, but being less than human, even more like monkeys than men. This is where that trope in America comes from. This is King Kong. This is Planet of the Apes. This is a bathing ape, clothing line. This is Glorilla. This is Gorilla Gang, and all of this other stuff that has become, you know, ever present in the culture in modern society today. So this is what American Jew 2 goes into. And not only that, the secret funneling of Nazi racist scientists into America to propagate this propaganda. And so that's what American Jew 2 is. American Jew 3 being the actual implementation of these Nazi programs, and I think the term is called pogrom. I think it's GRAM, which is just a plot and a program designed to bring terror and to bring terrorism in a secret fashion upon a group of people. And so this is what we're seeing with the introduction of crack into the inner city in the 80s, in the early 80s, and also the promotion for the selling of crack with the movie Scarface, right? We know that Scarface is the biggest movie to come into the community and the most influential movie to come into the community since what? I don't know, right? So even in my house, Scarface, you know, my wife's brother got Scarface on the wall today, right? This is a big, huge Tony Montana, it's a big, huge influence on the community and influenced us in such a negative way, have been brainwashed into killing our own people. And then here goes the drugs and the guns in order to get it done for you. The drugs coming from George Bush and Operation Iran Contra. We go into all that. The guns coming from Bill Clinton at his reserve guard in Arkansas that he's in control over, also having the hub for the drugs to be processed and then sent out to the rest of the country, and then Joe Biden implementing the laws to put people in prison who are in possession of crack cocaine versus cocaine. So the entire plan, the entire pogrom, I think it's called, and you guys correct me if I'm wrong about that pronunciation and definition for that word, but the entire scheme put into context there in that American Jew 3. No, don't do that yet. No, you me online here. I'll be in there in a minute. So the last video, American Jew 4, goes into the history of the oppressors, right? And the prophecy that predicts that this would be the world that we come into in the latter days, right? So we go into the mystery of Gog and Magog in that fourth American Jew video. If you guys haven't seen the series, go ahead and check out the whole series as well. And then from there, we go into the modern day programs that they're using today, because we know that crack has slowed down, even though it's still prevalent in the community. We know that guns have increased, right? There's guns in the community now than there used to be. So what programs are they doing to us now? If the 80s and the 90s was crack cocaine, then what are, and then now they're tearing down the projects. There's all sorts of stuff that they're doing. What are they doing now? And we know they're not doing nothing. What programs do they have in place for us now to slip and fall into? This is what American Jew 5 will be about. It'll be COINTELPRO now, right? You know how they've got Apocalypse Now? It'll be in that style, but COINTELPRO now. This is what is happening now, so that people can see and understand the things that are happening before us. We'll get into, of course, we'll go into that with a couple different ways. The first way is going to be through movies and through entertainment with, of course, drill rap and gangster rap and what the impact of that had and is still having on our culture, and how groups like NWA were really conceived as a means to damage the community. People don't know that Eazy-E was invited to the White House because he was one of Ronald Reagan's #1 contributors. Why? Because they're involved in this cult, and this cult is anti-Hebrew, so it'll be hacking the Hebrew population, even if it's from their own people, and it's even if it's popular. You see what I'm saying? The attack itself could be popular. And so that's what we'll get into with American Jew 5. That's coming down the line. But the first thing, and then with all of the video series, they will all merge together into one single story. So at the very end of all this, there will be one video that encapsulates the entire understanding. Now, I don't know what that video is going to be called. I haven't got far down the road yet, but every video series that I have is leading up to a specific point, and they're all leading towards the same point. So eventually, there will be one video that encapsulates all the concepts together in a single story, right? So the last video series that I have planned, and this is the next one, the next video that I'm going to come out is the name, the war for the name of God, right? Because we understand that there is a war in your mind for who it is that you call on, right? We were all raised calling on God, but that's not his name. We were all raised calling on the Lord, but that's not his name. We were all raised calling on Jesus. That's not his name. So there is a war in the mind of every believer as to what is the name of the person that they worship. And we're going to go deeply into this. We're going to look at the subtext that they have in movies. We're going to get into Jurassic Park. Because if you guys, you guys can believe it or not, but Republican Democrats are two sides of the same coin. Absolutely. As far as with the older population, we know the style of propaganda that they use against us is this left versus right paradigm, where they give you the Messiah from the left, and then they give you the Messiah from the right, and then they put opposing viewpoints in each position. This is called the Hegelian dialectic, from this German philosopher named Hegel. Back in the day, he came up with the way to control populations being through philosophy and ideology, that if you are able to design ideologies, then you can design two that equally oppose each other. And if you do that and hoist these two opinions on a society, that would be, you know, sensitive to these topics. For instance, in America, we have, black versus white. We have religion versus irreligion. And so if you can mold these two concepts into a single ideology, let's just say you want irreligion with black, religion with white, then you steer subconsciously each population in each direction, so that you can pit the two against each other in such a way that you don't pay any attention to the people controlling you at the top. We know President Trump and President Biden are on the same team, or on the same ticket. We know that Kamala, she has a husband. So she is beholden to some other group of people that we ain't got nothing to do with as Americans, right? Not only her, but the rest of the government as well. As you can see, there's a genocide going on in Israel right now that both parties are full support of. So how can you have there be a difference of opinion when both parties are fully in support of this genocidal mania that's going on in Israel right now from a group of people that we know are not Israelites? So we can see for sure. It says, will you cover a video talk about the relationship between the Father and the Son? I see a lot of videos from Hebrews denying the Son and making him to be Satan. Absolutely. Because this is one of the major problems of our community, that when we come into new information, we tend to throw aside the information that we already had, right? So definitely, I actually have a couple videos on this already. If you look back into some of the past videos, I have a video called Why Does Everybody Hate the New Testament? I have a video called something about the Messiah, but I'll have to just look into those videos, and maybe I can leave them in this chat box for you. But yeah, a lot of people come into the concept of being an Israelite. They like to throw the baby away with the bathwater. Literally, the baby that, literally, the child that was given. In fact, I was going to get to this, but my next, musically, what we're working on is an album called The Promised Child. And so this promised child we know is twofold. The promised child we know is Isaac, but also the promised child that is to come, that is to save all of us, is Mashiach Yahusha, right? And so we know that he came and is coming again. But many people, when we come into the understanding of our Hebrew culture, we tend to take the imagery that's been given to us and figures that have been presented to us, and then put them in the light of our oppressors. Of course, because we've been given, these figures have been given to us in the light of our oppressors. And now, since we see, white Jesus, since we see people worshiping white Jesus and him being the most popular figure in history, we then want to reject him because he's popular, and take the lower approach that sent us down into captivity in the first place. People want to, look and speculate as to why we're in the longest captivity that we've ever been in. If you look and see when the captivity started, it started in 70 AD. We're at 2024. You're talking about a 2,000 year, nearly 2,000 year captivity. What in the world could the children of Israel have done that was so egregious as to send us into captivity that took us 2,000 years to come out of? Do you see what I'm saying? We must have done something very, very serious, which we know, us believers know, is the murder of our own salvation. What do you expect to happen to you people if the person that Elohim sends to save you, you kill him? You see what I'm saying? If your salvation is dependent upon you accepting the person that the Father sent to you from your own bloodline, and you don't do it, then you should also expect the judgment that is to come. And we've had 2,000 years worth of judgment. In fact, we've had about 500 years worth of messianic, what I like to call messianic boot camp, so that we as a community cannot conceive of religion outside of Messiah. We have had Messiah literally beat into our brains with whips. I mean, under a false name, under a false racial identity, and with a false doctrine for sure. But the concept of Messiah, the one that is to come, that came, that died for our sins, is surely true. And if Magog has done anything for our benefit, he has seared that concept into skulls by way of 400 years of hard labor under this name. And so, hallelujah for being able to come out of that darkness that we were in for 1,500 years. Because we have to understand, as a people, we rejected Messiah and we rejected him for about 1,500 years until this captivity that we're in now. Now we, by and large, cannot be removed from the concept of Messiah. But when we come into our history, now we want to get back to what put us in the captivity before. No, we're not going to do that. We believe on Messiah and we believe in him with a whole heart. The scriptures prove him to exist. The text prove him to have pre-existed. And yeah, we can go into that very, very deeply. We can go all the way back to Genesis. We can go in many, many different places. My favorite place is where the brother of mine told me a few years ago that I had overlooked, this entire time, is Isaiah 63. The angel of his presence saved them, right? A lot of Hebrews like to go to Isaiah 43. Is it 43 or 46? Where it says, I am thy salvation and none is beside me, or none alone. Lots of people like to go there and say, oh, look, there is no Yeshua. It says there is no salvation besides me. But then, you know, 20 chapters in the future, in Isaiah 63, it says, the angel of my presence, my right hand, saved them and carried them all the days of old. The angel did that, right? So the angel saved them. But the angel comes in, I come in my Father's name, and you receive me not. If another shall come in his own name, him you will receive. Right? This angel comes in the name of the Father, so it's no different from saying the Father did it. Not saying that the angel and the Father are one person, because people like to say that too, to kind of avoid this scripture being a contradiction in their mind. Oh, if there's no other salvation than me, that Yeshua must be him. No, it doesn't mean that. It means as the king, he has the right to send his son to speak on his behalf as if it was him saying it. And we see that in the text from start to finish, right? And so we can go into that really deeply as well. And I put together something on that, because that is a topic of mine that I love to talk about, because there's so much evidence proving basically what we already know. The only thing that we need to really focus on as a community, because we've been in Christianity for so long, we have this look, this sense of rejection of Christianity when we come out of it. But the only thing about Christianity that we need to reject is the lawlessness of it, is the racial identity of it, is the separation aspect of what it is from the original culture, right? This is a Hebrew religion that we've rejected now. Do you see what I'm saying? As Israelites, no, you have to understand that Christianity is still a Hebrew religion. All right, it says, okay, I will take a look at your older videos, but I will come out with some other ones too, because a lot of the topics that I've already gone over, I do want to revisit live so I can get a feel for what people are looking at and what people are interpreting, and kind of, live deal with some of the issues, if be any issues. Do you see what I'm saying? I will do these topics over again. It says Matthew 27:25, all of the people answered, his blood is on us and our children. Hallelujah. That's the one that I always use, because our people claimed it. Our people claimed responsibility for the death of the Messiah. And with that comes judgment. And judgment came about 40 years later, and continues to this day, because now we've accepted Messiah but rejected the law. So now we've got to accept both of these things together. Here is the patience of the saints. He who has the testimony of Yahushua HaMashiach and keeps his commandments, and keeps the commandments. And if I'm not mistaken, that's Revelation 14:12 or 12:16. One of those two. I always get those two mixed up. But we understand that it takes both things. And the community that did both things very early on, that lasted for about, I guess, 750, 800 years, even into the diaspora, the group called the Nazarene had both of these things. They kept the commandments and they believed in Yahusha. We know they existed and we know they were a popular group because the church fathers, quote unquote church fathers, spoke against them and said these Nazarene are pretending to be Jews, but live like Christians, and they really are neither. Right? This is what the church fathers, so-called church fathers, were saying about the actual Nazarene, the actual followers of Messiah. And we also know that they were putting out curses against them, that cursed is anyone who keeps the Sabbath, cursed is who keeps the Passover with Jews and any other fables or superstitions of the Jews. Cursed be him and let him be an anathema, is what, they're trying to quote Paul there. But they're trying to also establish a definitive religion outside of Hebraic understanding. But we know the end of that, which is, our captivity. And now we know the goal of that, which is for us to believe in whole on Messiah and then to merge it with our understanding of the text as well. So, yeah, we'll definitely go into that. There's lots and lots of scriptures that you can go to prove this to be the case. And of course, people want to also discount Paul in the process. If they can't discount Messiah, then they discount Paul because they don't understand that Paul is really teaching the law from the perspective of Israel in the wilderness. If you understand that Israel in the wilderness was given the law in a piecemeal fashion, not all at one time, and then also Israel in the wilderness didn't keep the law, right? That, they were still they were still disobedient and still had to be forced into keeping the law, even in the wilderness. And once they got that under control, once they opened the Sabbath day correctly, once they learned to stop making idols, once they learned to stop bringing the wild women in the camp, they then had another problem. What was that last problem that they had? That was the real major problem that kept them from getting into the kingdom, into the kingdom of Israel. That problem with that generation was, everybody knows it, faith. This is what I'm saying. There's no new thing under the sun. So we know that the reason that Israel didn't make it into the promised land, that first generation out of Egypt, is because they lacked faith. And so what is Messiah asking of you today? What is Paul asking of you today? More than law, faith, right? Once you understand what to do, you need to understand what to believe, right? And so if you understand what to believe first, then why do you need someone to really break down what you need to do? Because you already believe. And if you're following that person that lived a sinless life, what do you need to go over the rule book for every day? You don't, right? So you have to worry about, you don't have to beat people over the head and say, is that sacrifice to idols or not? You're gonna judge yourself in that matter. Am I doing right or am I doing wrong? Do I need to go to this store or this store? This is what Paul in Corinthians is trying to tell you. Use wisdom. Don't beat your brothers over the head with something that you used to be guilty of. Do you see what I'm saying? So there's a lot of stuff to go into, especially about the understanding of the Messiah, the understanding of Paul, and then the interpretation of what we that in this modern era. So absolutely we can get into that on live at any point in time. But that'll be also alongside these side projects that I'm doing, like the videos and the music, right? So it says, let's see, we asked for Caesar and they gave us Caesar Borgia, for sure, for sure. We were not, in the past, we were not looking for the Messiah to come. We weren't looking for anything to change. The Pharisees and the Sadducees were in complete control. They were able to maneuver through the Romans, through the Edomites, and no, the Romans and the Edomites are two different groups now, and through all of the rest of the groups that were active in Jerusalem at the time. People don't understand that in Jerusalem, at the turn of the first century AD, there were lots of groups of people claiming to be Jews. If you look at the book of Esther, there was a whole group of Persians that changed, that circumcised themselves during the time of Esther, during the time of Mordecai, right? I think it's the Ahasuerus, right? So at the end of the Esther story, the culmination with Haman and Mordecai and the the vengeance that the Jews were going to be able to exact upon their enemies. Instead of, in all of these Persian lands, the Jews getting killed, the Jews then were able to exact their vengeance on their enemies, based on Esther, based on her, plea to the king, right? And so once the plot against him was found out, once Haman's treachery was found out, of course the Jews were then allowed to exact their vengeance upon their enemies in all the lands of Persia. But in these lands, the Jews the enemies, instead of being killed, said, wait a second, we'll just circumcise ourselves. And that's what they did. So in a lot of Persian realms, you have Jews that had been living as Jews in the first century for 400 years already. Do you see what I'm saying? So this is a whole group of Jews that are not really Jews, right? Not only them, you also have Edomites. Actual Edomites, and not white people that people think are Edomites today. Actual full-blooded regular people from Edom who would have been black, who would have been Israelites. I'm sorry, not Israelites, who would have been Hebrews. Not Hebrew Israelites, Hebrew Edomites, right? And these Hebrew Edomites would have been identical to Judah. These men were conquered in 200 BC, and they, for 200 years, had been living and acting as Jews. You had lots of Arabians that lived and acted like Jews. You had Ishmaelites that were from the line of Ishmael that lived and acted like Jews. You had Samaritans, which lived and acted like Jews, except they worshiped in Mount Gezer instead of in Mount Zion in Jerusalem. All these groups of people were at the first century claiming ancient heritage. Not so different from today, right? So in order to understand the time period that you're in, you got to go back to that period. You can't look at it from the 21st century to this first century and say, okay, well, this is the problem. No, you got to transport yourself back into that culture with all the information that the people in that culture had, and then the religious community that was there, right? On top of all this, you had different sections of Jews even. You had the Essene community, which is where the Qumran scrolls come from. You had that group that went out into the wilderness and lived in the wilderness against Jerusalem for 100 years before, 150, 175 years before the temple was destroyed. You had the Pharisees and the Sadducees. You had the Zealots. You had all these different religious groups, and then you had the Nazarene, right? You had the followers of John. All these different religious groups with religious concepts and ideas to pour through, and you've got Paul there in the middle. I mean, and then this is not before you even include Gentile religion, right? You got Paul in the middle interpreting all of these things for the people in these congregations and trying to explain to them what's going on. So that's why Galatians looks so crazy, because the things that were happening to the Galatians were from groups of people that didn't have it right, but were pretending to have it right. You see in Galatians when it says, this person cometh not of him that calleth you, it's talking about these people are people that don't believe in the Messiah. And you see these Judaizers, these people that were coming to tell the Galatians what to do, were false people themselves. It says that that they were Arabians, that they were from Mount Sinai in Arabia in Galatians chapter 4, that these people were from Mount Sinai in Arabia, and they were more related to Ishmael than Isaac. And that's why he says, what say ye? Cast out the bondwoman. You can't have that bondwoman in there. That's why you messed up, because you've got the doctrine of the bondwoman. And that doctrine is trolling Jerusalem right now, is what he says in Galatians chapter 4. So before you can understand chapter 3, and while he's condemning the law in chapter 3, you do need to understand who the law is coming from in Galatians chapter 4. And I've kind of gotten way off the subject of what I was talking about, but these are things that we'll get into and we'll continue to talk about. It says, some of the info you are speaking on is detailed there. Yeah, and some of the older videos for sure, that information. I've got a lot of stuff about Paul. I've got a lot of stuff about Messiah in some of the older videos that I've done. But I want to do lives on these videos so that we get Some of the, I know I don't hit every, high note on these videos. So some of the questions that people have, I would love to try my best to answer them, especially about the New Testament and the implementation of the New Testament, the concept of the Messiah going backwards from the New Testament era, and then also going forward. These are very, very important topics for people to understand because, brother is saying people have given up on the Messiah because they've thought that it's a European concoction or the Messiah is some sort of Roman doctored figure. Is so ridiculous of a concept to think that the Romans were ever smart enough to come up with a concept that involves all of ancient scripture of the Hebrews that they had no doubt, and then all of the future doctrines that are to come, which they can't know because they don't know the future. For the Romans to be able to come up with a story that encapsulates both those things is well beyond the intellectual capacity of the Romans. Do you see what I'm saying? The Romans weren't just brilliant people. It's well beyond the intellectual capacity of the Egyptians. It's well beyond the intellectual capacity of the Israelites too. It's just through us that these things have been spoken about. And then in our own history, these things have come to pass. I mean, we don't have anything to do with it outside of whether we are true to the commandments, to our Father, to Mashiach or not. We are literally living out the prophecies in our own lifetimes in the current day. No matter what people say about that, the Romans, the Romans couldn't, in their wildest dreams, imagine that they could come up with something so complicated and so thoroughly weaved into the fabric of the reality that we see around us. To be able to credit for something like that. It's not even something that they said that they were able to do. So, for us to believe that this white society, this Roman society, and I say Romans are whites, they're not really, but for any society to be able to come up with these concepts and then have them played in history in exactly the same fashion as predicted is, contrary to common sense. No, this is spirituality lived, spirituality understood, and then prophetically defined in our own lives that we can see, right now. So it's definitely something that needs to be talked about, how you can see these things, because some people don't see them. Some people don't see that Messiah is lived out in us. Do you see what I'm saying? Some people don't understand that the treasures of knowledge are hidden in Messiah, right? People wanted to say, oh, well, I know I was arguing with somebody about the deity of Messiah and the trueness of Messiah. And he said, oh, well, the devil is an angel of the devil is an angel of light. He can appear as an angel of light. And I said, now, brother, how do you know that? How do you know? If you don't believe in the New Testament, how do you know the devil is the angel of light? Where in the Old Testament does it say that? It doesn't say that. It doesn't say he's going to transform into anything. It doesn't say that any of those things. So how do you know it? The only reason you know it is because of Paul. And Paul told truly that, because here you are repeating it to me. So how are you going to use what somebody is telling you that you didn't know to discount the same person that they're telling you about? You can't do that. You can't use the New Testament information to discount the Messiah because they believe in the Messiah. And so you just have to look and understand the world around you. And I believe when people have the correct information, that the conclusion is self-evident, if that makes sense. It says there was a website that I mentioned. I think it got censored. Nasi Research. Okay, so I'm gonna have to definitely look that up. 513 Cincinnati. I looked up that book you told me about. What's it called? I looked it up and I started trying to listen to it. It was a little bit further out there for me, but was it by a sister named Desiree? I looked that up and I tried to listen to it, but I didn't get into it too far. Sacred and profane. I didn't get into it too far. It's a little bit wild, It looks like it's more on the was it the fictional side, and then it was like it sounds like a fictional novel that was written from the perspective of an Israelite and an Israelite dealing with supernatural things like yes, sacred and profane, supernatural things like aliens and contact and all of those different things. Am I wrong about that? Is that what it's going into? Because I did look that up, and I was like, "Wow, this one's a little bit wild for me." But let me give it a second look too to see if I can't glean anything from it. Too, I know we were going to it being about just different things, but I did try to look it up, and I didn't get right into it right away. So let me get a chance to take a look at that one. 513 Natty. I will that again. But yeah, just I wanted to get back really quickly into the goal of the channel. The goal of the channel is to educate on the things that people don't necessarily want to talk about in the scripture in order to get a full view of what we're dealing with in the modern era. We talk about, keeping Torah. We talk about believing in the Messiah. We talk about all of the things that entails. But do we know the full picture about the society around us? And do we implement these things in our interpretation of what we see around us? Do we look at any person or any organization that is pushing something other than biblical understanding as something that trusted? No, we don't. We can't. So that means that every biblical understanding that we have must be implemented into everything we see. We can't see anything talking about any satellite in space or set anywhere without first saying to ourselves, okay, the earth is flat. There can't be a satellite in space. So what are they actually talking about? What are they actually, right? We can't look at anybody whose testimony about the afterlife does include Sheol or includes heaven, right? This person went to heaven. We can't take that as being fact because we know that spirits don't go to heaven when we know they go to Sheol. We know that there's a separation between the spirits of the righteous and the spirits of the unrighteous in hell. The term Sheol is hell, but all men, even Messiah, went to hell, went into hell. Luke chapter 16 with the rich man and then Lazarus, right? Lazarus being in Abraham's bosom, the rich man being in torments, the rich man being able to see Abraham and Lazarus from where he's at in torments. This is exactly what it says in Enoch. Chapter 22, about the structure of the earth, that all men go to hell, right? So if somebody gives you a story, man, I died and came back to life, went to heaven, saw the Messiah, you got to say, wait a second, you did go to heaven. There couldn't be any way you went to heaven because all souls go to hell first. There's a paradise in hell. It's crazy. People crazy. But I mean, it's just true. It's just concepts that we don't incorporate into our regular understanding. So when we do that, when we accept these concepts and then incorporate them, we don't incorporate that there's a satanic cult that runs America. So we look at Will Smith slapping Chris Rock like, oh man, I can't believe it happened. No, there has to be something behind it in order to affect millions of people by doing this, because we know both of these people are in a satanic cult that loves to role play for propaganda purposes. So anything we see coming in the form of a TV show has to be a TV show. It can't be somebody literally going up and slapping another man on public TV, on cable television for millions of people to see. There's no charges filed. There's no security. There's none of that stuff, right? So we got to know that it's a play. And if we don't incorporate all this reality into everything that we see, then we get played. Do you see what I'm saying? We get played in the play, right? And that goes from presidential assassination attempts on down. You see what I'm saying? You guys see what I'm talking about? So this is what the channel is going to get into as well. We're going to get into all facets of reality, right? And we're going to get into Beyond that, music, and then also art, right? I use the video production in order to explain these concepts artistically. I want to do it in a method that is pleasing to the eye, pleasing to the ear. You know, like Solomon says that when he writes things that are pleasing to hear. So this is the same way that I put together video production and then music as well to portray a biblical concept of worship that is pleasant to the ears and pleasant to the eyes, and then gives you a full picture of what's going on. That's the goal of this channel, but to also do it in such a way that people would gravitate to, that could be labeled artistic. Does that make sense? This is the goal of the channel, to try to spread the message in all ways possible, not just one part of the message, not just the shadow of the message, but the full message, to be able to reach as many people as possible, for it to be as many topics that people are interested in, and for people to gravitate to a full understanding and not a half understanding. Does that make sense, everybody? I hope that makes sense to everyone. That's the goal of the channel. And there's a couple other things that I wanted to talk about that's coming down. I wanted to talk about the album. I'm coming out with a new album. It's going to be called The Child of Promise. It's going to be about Israel being the child of promise, but we know Isaac is the child of promise, but Israel as a nation being the child of promise, as well as the Messiah being the child of promise, as well as the anti-Messiah being a promised child. And then the at least musically, the interplay between all of those different aspects of a promised child in the modern day. So this is kind of a musical interpretation of all of those things put together. So that's coming out. So the lives, the movies, and the music are really what I'm doing with this channel. And if anybody else has, any concepts, we talked about the Messiah, and we've talked about a couple of other things, the RH negative factor, and then also Gog and Magog. But any of these other mysteries too, I'm definitely available to go to them, and would love to speak to people about them, on a biblical basis, with any questions or just discussion. That's what I love to do. That's what we do every day. But if nobody has any questions, I'm going to go ahead and shut it on down. We talked about the Messiah, and then the truth behind Messiah, people giving up their own salvation, for doctrinal purposes. It's just not something that we should do as a nation. It's really what got us into trouble in the first place. So we'll get into those things. And I'll leave some of the links to the older videos in the comments, but I will have some lives coming up that get into these topics, because they're really easy for me to do, and I love doing them. We pride ourselves in our understanding. And you're not supposed to boast in anything, but we pride ourselves in our understanding of the text and our worship of the Father. And this is what we love to do. So it really come easy for me to say, okay, well, you can go to Genesis 32 and see the man that wrestled with Jacob. And, this man said his name was wonderful. Why would he do that? His name revealed in Zechariah 6 and all of these different things. You're good. Are you putting it on the fire? What is that? Oh, okay. Yeah. She needs those for sure. All of these different places, this is really, really easy to do, to prove the Messiah in the text. And then all the little places where they say, oh, well, this prophecy doesn't match, or none of these prophecies align in this way. Those are easy to understand too, because clearly Messiah is a type, right? And then in any typological prophecy, the way that they come to pass will be in a typological sense too. So we can get into that as well. So, yep, everybody, if there's nothing else, I'm going to get in here and we're going to do some homeschool with the boys, and then we're going to wrap it up. Okay, you guys, if there's nothing else, shalom, shalom from the motherland. That's the other thing, real quick. I appreciate you too, my brother, for sure. But the other thing that we wanted to, before we get off here, is also promote, and I've got only just a little bit of time, also promote the concept of social independence as a nation. We do not need an American flag. We do not need a Ghanaian flag, a Pan-African flag. We don't need none of those things. As the nation of Israel, we are a nation in the place where we are. Scripture says that we are as strangers and pilgrims. That means we need to behave as strangers and as pilgrims in all the places where we are. And we can do that as a community on our own from wherever we are. I do believe that it's going to be hard to do in America coming up very soon. So we also promote the idea of social independence outside of America. This is a concept that we as a people have to come in contact with because the scripture says, come out of Babylon, my people. We know in the future, like I did, coming here to Ghana, here to Africa, that people are going to heed this call and heed it in large groups. And we cannot be afraid of that. We've got to come out of the place where we are, both in our understanding and in our physical selves, and not be afraid to plant ourselves elsewhere, and then also plant ourselves elsewhere with authority, right? The Messiah spoke with authority, not like the scribes did. He spoke with authority. So wherever we go, whatever we do, we plant ourselves social structure. We don't lose that blues that we took with us from the United States. We don't lose that hip hop culture, that dance culture, that singing culture. We don't lose that. Take that with us. We take that with us in a religious form and not in a secular form. But we take that and we plant that where we go, and we can do that anywhere. It doesn't have America. You guys have to understand that America has used us as the number one commodity for growth for forever, for 400 years. We have now know that we don't need them to do that. We can do that. We can do that on our own, and we can do that from anywhere. And so the other thing that this channel represents is social independence outside of America. People, just get it in your mind that America is not our final stop, that America is not our home, that we can pick and go anywhere we want, and we will be anywhere that we go scriptural celebrities, because that's who we are called to be, not to boast in ourselves or to boast in our heritage or any of these other things, because all those things were taken from us, but to boast in Elohim Yah, who have given us this authority to be able to speak in the way that we speak, to be able to do the things that we do, and to use that talent, to use those talents that we are given, and not to bury them, but to use them for drawing in souls. That is our mission. And my mission, particularly, is to draw them out of Babylon and to establish ourselves in many different places all over the world so that we have this same network that we have here or that we had there all over the place. And in all the places that we are, to draw souls out there too, if that makes sense to you guys. So that's the mission for the channel. There's a lot of other different channels that are doing similar things. And so we are right on board with it. We are aligned with those doctrines as well. Even people that are doing it a little bit differently, we say hallelujah for people getting up and going and planting their flag in other places and using social media, just social commentary in order to promote this concept with the Spirit and with the Father involved. Absolutely. And so this is the goal of the channel, you guys. And I know I appreciate you guys too, sure. But I do know that it's not an easy thing to do. But that's what we're out here doing. And I really do appreciate you guys' support in this. So if there's anything else, or if there's nothing else, I will go ahead and sign off for you guys. And then we'll check back in probably tomorrow. And tomorrow we're going to do, if you are interested, if you guys are interested, we're doing the history of the Holocaust and why that event in history was able to lead to the world that we have now. These are not really mysteries, but they're good to talk about so that we can kind of figure out and, flesh out the world that we have around us, based on the history that we see, you guys. Okay, if there's nothing else, I really appreciate you, brothers. Thank you too, my brother. Shalom, shalom, you guys.